Pray. Almighty God, you have called your servant to make promises before you. Now enable us to keep our vows, that we may remain steadfast in faith and fruitful in every good work. Bless, we pray, your servant Rebekah, to whom the care of your people in this church is now committed. Pour out your Holy Spirit upon her and the people of Fruitport Congregational United Church of Christ and all the churches of the Grand West Association, that our mutual ministry may be served with all faithfulness, diligence, and courage. Grant us the spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. Make our ministry a means of awakening the careless, strengthening the faithful, comforting the afflicted, building up your church, and converting sinners to you. Guard against the snares of temptation, that we may be kept pure in heart, spirit, and valiant against evil. And at the last, by your grace, receive us into your eternal home, where with you and the Holy Spirit, Christ reigns with glory, one God, forever and ever.
Amen.
I get the pleasure of bringing the charge to the congregation, and what I find kind of fascinating is just once again the working of the Holy Spirit, because not knowing what Reverend Gonzalez might talk about and praying that God would give me words to say to all of us as the congregation and how much they parallel one another. So to you, the congregation of Fruitport Congregational Church, I charge you to welcome Rebekah into your congregation as your leader and spiritual advisor. Pray for her and encourage her. Remember that we are entering into a covenantal contract, and a covenant is a promise. And so as we move forward, we covenant with one another. Recognize that this call is about relationship and accountability, and this holds true on both the denominational and church level. She has relationships within the UCC, and the UCC will keep her accountable, as she will be required to meet with them at regular intervals for training and consultation. We as a congregation also will keep accountability with Rebekah. We already have a pastoral relations committee that has formed and met with her and continues to do so on a regular basis. But we also need to form that relationship piece. This is a mutual relationship and not a dictatorship from us as a congregation. Be open to that change and put away the old adage, but we've always done it this way. Be patient and give grace to Rebekah as she finds her way. Be honest and work towards peace and unity. Be supportive and try to focus on the positive. Recognize as well that Rebekah will need relationships outside of the congregation to stay charged. And this is a twofold charge. First, Rebekah needs relationships with people, period. Ministry is often a lonely profession. You wouldn't think so because of all the people in the congregation, but many shy away from pastors because we're pastors. And they're like, oh, I can't share that with them. Thinking we'll be judgmental or critical, or they'll expose themselves, whatever it is. So often when I meet with other pastors and have that kind of conversation, it's a lonely life very often. Secondly, as a congregation, we need to respect her time off. Mondays are her days of the week off, and we need to give her time to pursue other passions and interests and be in fellowship with friends and family. If there's any way that you can hold off till Tuesday, I would ask that you do that for her in total respect. Certainly if it's an emergency, we've had hospitalization, or there's some kind of a traumatic thing that's happened or a death, then by all means, then we should give her a call. But recognize that it's tough being on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a week, on a pastor's salary. It's going to be taxing, and we know that in this congregation, let's face it, the majority of our congregants are at least 50 years or older. The majority, not all. But that means there's going to be things that happen. And so it may be necessary for Rebekah to shift her day off to another day in light of those situations that could arise. So please be flexible and understanding of that. It's important, like I said, that she have time to also pursue things that recharge her outside of the church. Having said that, I also encourage us to trust her vision and leadership. She has been called to shepherd us, and that includes taking us out of our comfort zone at times to cause us to grow. But that doesn't mean that we walk away because it makes us uneasy. She spent a great deal of time educating herself and studying the Word, and so consequently, in the quest to make disciples of all of us, it's not always going to make sense or be clear to us. Hold out for the bigger picture. Her job is to challenge us and lead us toward a closer relationship with God. To shepherd us means to herd us toward Christ, and often that's a very difficult personal journey to make. Finally, I encourage you to pray. Pray for Rebekah, pray for our congregation, pray for the ministry of Fruitport Congregational United Church of Christ. You've been so patient and kind as we have transitioned through these last 2 years without a, quote, permanent pastor. The strong and committed have adapted and survived an extensive amount of changing and uncertainty. Hold tight. The transition is over, and God has answered our prayers, and Rebekah has answered the call. Let us rejoice and thank God for her and express our gratitude in our words and actions as we move forward together. Thanks be to God. Amen.
You're not in charge here, Becky. For 10 or 12 years, I had breakfast every Thursday morning with 2 other ministers named Bob and Dick. We ate at Denny's in Port Huron. Every once in a while, somebody would have come up to our table and thanked Bob or Dick effusively for something that he had done for him. The minister would be polite, and after the visitor left, would say to the other 2 of us, I have no idea what he's talking about. Finally, having lived in Port Huron for 5 or 6 years, it was my turn. Man came up to our table and thanked me for what I did. Dick and Bob were grinning from ear to ear while he talked. When the man walked away, my friends asked, what did you say to him? I don't know. What was the occasion? Beats me. What's his name? I don't have a clue. You're not in charge, Becky. One night when we were living in Pittsburgh, I was out late with Gary Wilds, whom I'm sure you remember. Gary has never had a reputation for shyness. I told him it would be a good thing if I could make a quick stop at the hospital if he didn't mind, and he said he would like to be part of the visit. Gary was on the board, so it was not an inappropriate idea. I made a routine visit, and we left. At the next board meeting, Gary went on and on and on and on about how much help I had been to this woman. His speech may have been longer than the visit. I have what I call rag sermons. There are a lot of rags in my garage. My favorites are the old washcloths and hand towels with the little nubby things in the material, but a lot of the little nubby things have been rubbed off. The rag has oil streaks on it with more than one color of oil, meaning I used it to check the oil on more than one car. It has dried blood on it where I lost a battle with a nut in a bowl. These rags are in water buckets, or they're in decommissioned laundry baskets. They're all wadded up, but they're stiff. Every once in a while I would get up to deliver a sermon, and I knew that for whatever reason the sermon never quite came together. It's the worst feeling in the world to go into the pulpit with a rag sermon. Now, I've heard a few of your sermons, Becky. I've read a few others. That's the week that someone will say at the back door, "Pastor, that's one of the best sermons you've ever given. It really spoke to me." You're not in charge. It's sort of like you never really left home. Neither one of us is in charge there. It's going to be a long ride anyway. There are unforeseen consequences in ministry. Clergy affect people in wonderful ways of which clergy are often totally unaware. I speak not of correct theology at the Fruitport Church, or effective programming in your new call, of educating the laity, of utilizing your spiritual gifts. I suppose I have to recognize your significant ministry gifts. Part of me prefers to think you are still 12, and I'm 45. So you could not possibly have ministry gifts. But 36 and 69 is not so bad either. There is the unintentional in ministry. I'm reminded of the parable of the sheep and the goats when one of the groups asks in all sincerity, "When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison?" They don't know. In effective ministry, you are so immersed that you lose self-consciousness. The Holy Spirit is around. B. Gonzer called me up once. You remember B, as you remember Gary, and most likely you remember Bob Starkey and Dick Lobb. The longer I'm in ministry, the more I thought of people and the less I thought of programs and ideas. And I hope you are becoming the same way. B said there was terrible conflict in her son David's church, and when I talked with David said his church was very tense because the minister was over conscientious. He had to be involved in everything, and he had to make his point. I remembered some old seminary books, and I spoke to David about things happening through ministers. Ministers make very little happen. Perhaps it could be said that this helped this minister to become a little less over-responsible. Over-responsibility is a widespread problem in ministry. ministry. Perhaps ministry could be a little more fun for him. David said that he shared some of this, and it helped. You are not in charge. The Holy Spirit shows up in its time. The point I would like to make is that the longer I was in ministry, the more I saw these moments for which there are no accounting. You read similar books to the ones I read in seminary, and it was easy for me to think, yeah, every once in a while there may be a Twilight Zone experience. Yet as time went by, more and more years of ministry, I saw more and more and more things happening over which I had absolutely no control. Sure, there is bad stuff, but there's lots and lots and lots of subtle good stuff. I was not in charge. More and more. Ministers should wear dunce caps while they're working. No one else on the planet knows better than I what a complete and total idiot you can be. A love